Which moron left his camera at home? Yes, you guessed it. So I'm having to resort to my sidearm, the old GoPro. There's an old phrase that the best camera is the one that you have with you. I would like to say I think in this case they might be wrong. So I have at my disposal, I'm not able to focus thing as this thing, it has a fixed focus. I have at my disposal, I can fiddle with the exposure, the white balance, I can't really fiddle with the focal length because they say I can, but the problem is they just do it by crimping your pixels. So it's you want to film at the maximum 5K in my case, and then if you need to reduce it for publishing it, do it with a good quality editor rather than this stupid machine doing it on the fly. That is the River Severn behind me, and Arlingham, and there is a crossing somewhere down there. Now people used to think that there's a really straight road leading up to the river, that was the Roman road, but other people have countered that, saying there was a rope walk along there, which is why it was so straight, because what you do is you twist the rope strands along a really long length of ground to manufacture rope, and that's why it was so straight. There is another alternative just over this side over here. There's a wharf of some sort, and further on down where the river bends and heads north, where the River Frome joins the River Severn, there's a place called Perambulation, and that name, Lode, is Old English. Lade is you hear it in places like Cricklade and Lechlade and other lades. It is Lade means Lade means passage. It's a place where you cross the river, and so that Framelode means the place, the Frome where you cross the river, which is an interesting name in itself. It throws another another crossing into the hat for somebody eventually to come down and say where the Roman road went. But the Roman road comes, as I've done on several videos, comes from that ridge far up there, comes along here past Froster to Arlingham, or somewhere near Arlingham, and then heads off into through Gloucestershire and into Wales, northwest, basically, west to northwest. But the antiquarians of the past have found there's a couple of roads around here that one opposite the straight road that I said was a rope walk, what they call Roman paving. It is worth mentioning here that opposite Arlingham Wharf, on the other side of the river, is a place named called Strand, which is Strond in Old English, meaning shore. That also suggests somewhere where you would park boats. And further down, there's an interesting place name called Stantway, and the Old English for that place was Stanig Tan Way, which means stony way, which supports this riverside road as being Roman. There's other support. There's quite a few Roman indicators in place names along this road, particularly Stroat down towards Chepstow, which is Old English Strat, again an indicator for a Roman road.
Also on the last video I failed to point out that this road here, north of the road we're talking about now, Grundy mistranslates. He calls it the riding as a clearing, that riding means clearing, and he's just wrong. For some reason academics have got this blind spot with this particular, with the word ride. It is the forerunner of the word road, which if you have an ounce of common sense you'd know. There's a place called Threading here, which refers to the riding. So it is an old road. Whether or not it's Roman or not is another matter.
And signs of Roman paving, and in other places around here. And the received wisdom up until now is that the latest people to make roads before the modern period were the Romans. And that's borne out by if you're a landowner in the Anglo-Saxon period and then the medieval period, you had three duties. One was military service, the other was fixing bridges, and the other one was fixing fortifications. No mention of roads at all, because to them a road was just a piece of ground you walked along, and they'd choose a piece of ground that wasn't muddy, like Ridgeways. They didn't need to surface them, didn't need to create a causeway. It is now if it was a bit longer doing that was fine by them. So we know there was no duty to make roads, and it's only really when the turnpikes in the 18th century and later came along that good modern roads were built, and all the roads that we use down in valleys that would be normally a pit of mud, it's only because of modern road building that we have them at all. They would at most have been footpaths between villages. So this stretch of land here is the Ridgeway, and it's been enclosed and a new road built to its side here. Now this Ridgeway isn't the Ridgeway in Berkshire, on the Berkshire Downs. There are lots of Ridgeways there everywhere, as I was having a debate with the chaps on Wessex Ways podcast, that the Ridgeway in Berkshire has had attached to it a privilege that in some ways is deserved, but in other ways isn't. It is Ridgeway is Old English for a way on a ridge, and this place is, and that's marked in the Anglo-Saxon charters, along with the Roman road at its base. I've forgotten the name of it. Icknield Way. No, not Icknield Way. Itchenhilde. Oh. Yeah, it might be Icknield Way. Anyway. But up here in the perambulation of Blaise Bailey, which is a bailey is a place of forest where you have absolute control. And in this case is a compartment of a broader royal forest, the royal forest of Dean. And here it's called Ridgeway, and Rudge is the Gloucestershire dialect word for ridge, and it's called the Ridgeway because it's a way on a ridge, just like the Ridgeway in Berkshire. So this is Blaise Bailey I'm going through at the moment. It's a very steep bank. I was thinking about walking down it to Cockshoot, and now Cockshoot is mentioned in the perambulation. Perambulation is going around, walking around. So by walking around mentally around the I put the mental into walking around. If you can walk, you can delineate where your boundary is, the outer edge of your land, by doing a perambulation. So it starts with a cockshoot. It says cocksuter or something like that, cocksuter grena, which is Middle English, and cockshoot green. It means a glade where you shoot woodcocks. The green of a glade where you shoot woodcocks, and that's a village still today called Cockshoot. A hamlet more like, just at the bottom of this really steep hill. I was going to go and have a look. I mean, have a look at that. I'm not climbing back up there. And though I have to say, get behind me, there was a chap with a walking stick, I think it must have been in his 70s, 80s. He was walking up that hill, the other side, faster than I was. So anyway, yeah, so Cockshoot, that's the start that says go down to a cross. Now that's the only part of this perambulation I've got a major problem with, because it is... Now Grundy is the only source I have there. All of this is contested, by the way, so you can't actually say that I'm getting any of this absolutely certainly right. I'm giving you a flavour, as much of a flavour as I can. So the only bit that's giving me problems is this cross. Now there's a place called Store there, or I don't know. Well, it's a farm called Store. Now that was updated in the normal way of English. It changed its vowels, but somebody's changed it back, which is Antiquarianism. We shouldn't give up our beautiful language and the way it's developed, because we love the past more. We should record the past and talk about it, but be ready to acknowledge that we live in a different age. But anyway, you know, English has changed. Anyway, that place, that farm, means post. There's obviously a way marker or something along the Via Regia, which comes up from probably, this is all contested like I say, comes up and then heads off northwest. Now the antiquarians found a surface on the road which they think is Roman, but unfortunately our archaeologists have had a go, used their Scientological doodads on it, and it's been discredited, so it's no longer marked on the map as Roman. None of the roads are around here. And I'm not so much of a cantankerous so-and-so, I'm going to argue with them, but I certainly think it is the Via Regia, and I'm sort of halfway to thinking it might be Roman as well, but I'm not even convinced with all the other linguistic evidence and place name, topographic and toponymic evidence. I'm not sure at all that this is a Roman road. But anyway, so it says go along the Via Regia from Cockshoot to the cross. Now Store means post. If a cross, the only thing I can think of is if a cross is not a crossroads but a cross on a hillside marking the way, then we might have an understanding. But it's only one landmark, so it's the rest of them give the stick to what is quite closely the current Blaise Bailey today. The leaves are appearing on the deciduous trees rapidly now. It's very exciting to see as we head towards summer, and this silver birch it wouldn't be very happy within the forest itself, but here on the edge of the road it's getting some light. Now I promised one of our viewers, that I would talk about the exploiting the national environment in the national interest. Now, nothing gave me greater pride than when our Labour government took British Steel under its control by Act of Parliament. It was a really good example of how Parliament doesn't always fail. It succeeded this time, and the reason why there's cross-party support, albeit quite a lot of whinging, political whinging, it went through not for ideological grounds, but because we need to be in control of our basic tools, the basic things that we need to function as a state. Politics is statecraft, and if you lose sight of your ability to control what's going on within your borders, let alone what's going on outside it, you are in a tricky situation. Now, steel is the foundation of any manufacturing that requires solidity, weatherproofing, and all the rest of it. You know, the ability to fly through the area at speed carrying a payload requires steel, and to fly through the countryside on roads with a payload requires steel. Now, the real reason why the government panicked and did an emergency meeting of Parliament, and they haven't really, one person discussed this, I haven't seen anybody else discuss it, is that if you have a foreign company that is influenced by a foreign power that has control over your steel making, where your primary iron ore comes from, if you decide to take, as a country, a nation to take direct action abroad, or even in your own defence, and the foreign company, under the influence of a foreign power, doesn't like that, they can throttle your access to the raw materials that you need to function, to protect yourself, to protect others. So even if we send our armed forces abroad, it is more likely than not it will be in solidarity with Poland, Lithuania, or Latvia, or something like that, and that will probably require the entire country to, the entire economy to mobilise. And now you can't do it if somebody else can throttle your raw materials. So I think that was the most significant political action for quite a while. Its emergency nature was very telling. But what's that got to do with the forest? Well, we have in the Forest of Dean, now originally it was for the pleasure of the king to enjoy hunting deer. It is obviously he made some money out of wood and out of timber and underwood and so on. But it's later times it becomes a reservoir of wood, of timber, and that's really one of the reasons why it's run by Forestry Commission, given by the Crown, I think, to the Forestry Commission, and it is a reservoir of raw material in our countryside. It's one of the reasons we get to enjoy freely this landscape, is because it's run by a government department. That access to the countryside is something that governments have wanted, and it's quite hard to do when it's private property, but when it's public property, it's a different matter. But even before then, this landscape was timber, it was iron, and it was coal, and those three things in themselves are enough to run a navy, to set up railroads, to do all those important logistical things that enable a state to express its power, and which is why it's here at all in the first place. When I see large piles of cut timber lying around. I don't think for a second it's going to market. I think they're just tidying the place up, ready for the next big, the next big European crisis that we get faced with, which quite frankly I don't think is very far away. I've accidentally gone the wrong way. I'm back up on the ridge, and I know that because the land falls away both sides. I'm on the very top. These roots kept you dry. They kept you up above marshland, and that is one of the landmarks for the eastern edge of the woodland. It's called Mora furlong. And that means the furlong of the marsh, probably. Now that caused a problem for Grundy, because he said all along that the forest didn't go as far as the Severn, and he's actually quite wrong, because there is a perambulation, one of the early ones, that goes all the way along. The forest edges go all the way along the Severn, right down to the mouth of the Wye, including Tiddenham, which traditionally isn't part of the forest, but is according to this perambulation, not this one, the one I'm talking about now. Then up the Wye, and then across to Ross, I think, and then back to Gloucester. It's a great big old. Look at this nice dike. It's interesting, isn't it? Fascinating. It's a stone. It's a dry stone wall that is collapsed, creating a dike as earth builds up around it. What was I saying? Bloody hell. It's massive old. What do you think? Do you think it's more a revetment than a dry stone wall? I think it is. I think that is a made road. Either that. Curious, isn't it? I've just remembered Grundy's disquiet, so we've got an issue with. You get a view of the dike. So you've got an issue of. Mora furlong means that furlong is ploughed land. It's the edge of a ploughed land, and moor is marshland. And there is, even though it's quite high up on the edge of this woodland, there are lots of streams going into it. So yes, it is marshy, meadowy land. Well, let's have a look at this. I think we've got a dike or a causeway. You can see the strata running through it. Or is that the collapse of it? It can't have been that tall. Yeah, curious. I think an archaeologist has had a little rummage here. I shall have to look it up. But I don't see why you would build a causeway on top of a ridge. unless you were telling people that about your ownership of the land or some sort of symbolic signalling of some sort. But yeah, so he said it isn't part of the forest, any marshland or ploughed land, and I think he's accidentally right in this case. Certainly, I think for the Baileys, I don't think that. I think if you take Baileys as compartments of a forest, if you add them all together, they don't actually make up the whole forest as it's constituted in some of the perambulations. So I think when villagers wedge their plough lands into these places, into these forests, they break up into smaller units, the forests, and they call them Baileys. I think that's probably what's going on. That is my interpretation. That's, I just didn't mean to come. I'm looking for a road called the Hayway, which is part of, once you get past Mora Furlong, there's you get the Hayway, and I want to have a look at that, and I think it's down there.